and quit.
They won't go up there and get their own stuff anymore without having somebody go with them. There's always something going on back there.
They claim something strange and dark lingers up there. One waitress will never go back after her experience.
There was a ghost standing right in front of me, looking right at me. She said it ran down the corridor and it turned the corner and it vanished. That might have been the one I lost.
Witnesses say the ghost apparently looked like she was from the early 1900s and perhaps dressed for a day on the lake. Could she be one of the passengers of the unfortunate steamship?
When you have a large amount of people that go through a disaster or a very shocking, quick transition, spiritual energy becomes confused. Sometimes they're not aware they're even deceased. I believe they're continuing the company picnic that they were set out to do that day.
While the party never happened, it might be wise not to tell the reported spirits, who appear to be enjoying themselves just fine at the Excalibur. With or without ghosts, Chicago will never forget the tragic Eastland disaster. One cemetery that may have been overlooked as a burial ground for Eastland disaster victims is called Bachelor's Grove. Though Eastland victims are not buried there, the two have one thing in common. They're both reportedly the source of bizarre supernatural activity. Graveyards are legendary for ghosts, but those who dabble in the paranormal agree that Bachelor's Grove may be one of the most haunted cemeteries in the United States.
For some reason, Bachelor's Grove has more hauntings of a greater variety than any other cemetery I have ever been to. You've got all kinds of visual activity, which is rare. For so many decades, for so many people, this spot is the supercharged haunted spot around Chicagoland.
Located about 35 minutes southwest of Chicago, Bachelor's Grove is hidden down a long path in Rubio Woods Forest Preserve. It's the site of over 100 documented accounts of supernatural activity, from apparitions who wander the grounds to a ghostly farmer plowing his field. In the 1800s, German and British immigrants settled a farming community in the area. Some local historians say it was named Bachelor's Grove for 4 single men who settled there in 1833. Legend has it that the dead returned to the area at night, and some of the sightings have reportedly been captured on film by Lydia Montoya and Monty McClellan of HauntedChicago.com. It was late one night in the summer of 2000. Along with another ghost hunter, they were hoping to get just one photo to document the paranormal activity. What they got was a collection of some unbelievable images.
I took a picture of the stone because it's very unusual. It looked like a man right here and a woman right here, and almost like they were connected, like holding hands. There's researchers that actually believe that spirits project their images on the tombstones to allow their picture to be taken.
On another outing, the two were almost scared right out of the cemetery, and their photos will show you why.
It was a really intense night. You can see the tree behind it, and you can see how part of this tree is partially obscured by this shadow here. And then there's this luminous mist all around it. And then shortly after that, we heard the gate rattle. I snapped a picture in that general direction, and I picked up this mist coming in. It appears to be coming in through the gate here.
Their night vision cameras caught these images near the Fulton tombstone. They call them floating orbs that look like balls of light. To ghost hunters, they're definite evidence of the supernatural. They say all this is proof enough that Bachelor's Grove is haunted.
I think a lot of it isn't visual, and the best way to document the existence of what's taking place out here is through, the photographs and the video.
Perhaps what they saw was one of the most frequently reported apparitions there. She's called the White Lady, and she is said to be the ghost of a woman buried next to her infant. Those who have seen her say she sometimes walks the grounds with a baby in her arms, especially during a full moon. Just when you think you've seen everything, visitors to the cemetery say that's when the real thrills begin, like a turn-of-the-century caretaker who reportedly appears out of nowhere and then vanishes before your eyes. In the 1960s, the graveyard was abandoned and closed to the public. Police still patrol the area, but late one evening, we received official permission to film at Bachelor's Grove. we discovered the area's been likened to a sort of Blair Witch type of experience for local teens who sneak in looking for a thrill. We followed some out there and sent along 2 ghost hunters.
It feels like it's walking around because I get a chill from there.
He's right there.
You got me, you got me, you got me.
See anything? Whoa, look, go, dude. Go, hold still. Whoa, completely still. Hold still. He's running. He's right behind. Run. There he goes. He's down the lake. He just ran across the lake, right there. Look at him run, he ran right through there. Did you see him on the camera, guys? Did everybody see that? It wasn't just me?
In the dark of the night, they searched the area, not knowing what was in front or behind them. Suddenly, the teens pointed out something strange lingering in the trees.
But there's something out there, and there's something watching. See him right there, he's walking. Where? Right where? Let me see. Right there. Gotcha. There he is right there. Yep. See him, he's moving. He's moving quick, too.
Slowing down the footage, there seems to be something moving in this area of the trees. Were their minds merely playing tricks on them? Or did they really experience the supernatural that night?
It was scary, though. I came to see, like, just to look around and see the gravestones and stuff, and I got more than I expected.
I'd say it's haunted. It's just that feeling you get on the back of your neck when I walk around here.
By Chicago's lake or by land, ghost hunters agree that the city's hauntings are far too numerous to ignore. So the next time you visit Chicago, be on guard and decide for yourself if it really is one of America's most haunted cities.
Hi, Tracy Gallagher for the Travel Channel. I'm here at spookyhouse.com. 200,000 square feet of total terror. But so far, I haven't seen anything scary. I don't know what everyone's screaming about. Okay, now I get it. And if you want to visit more creepy destinations, from haunted hotels to mansions of mystery, watch Haunted Travels Week starting October 28th at 8, only on the Travel Channel. Do not go in there.
From Frankenstein and Dracula to the Blair Witch Project and beyond, horror films captivate our imaginations and unleash our deepest fears. Revisit the locations of the horror films forever etched into our memories. From Georgetown in The Exorcist.
Lurking behind a little girl's bedroom door is, well, green vomit.
Find out where the true story behind The Exorcist took place.
I talked to volunteer firemen who had burned that house to the ground. They felt they were burning down the Exorcist house.
Stroll the very same South Pasadena streets where John Carpenter's classic Halloween was made.
We in Halloween wanted to go the opposite way. Safe neighborhood. Nothing could possibly go wrong in this neighborhood.
Travel to Long Island, New York, and uncover the scandal beneath the real house made famous by the Amityville Horror.
They called him Butch. The night he murdered his parents, he was high on drugs. Very high on drugs.
Come along as we walk the Universal Studios backlot, where the horror movie genre was born. From Psycho to Frankenstein, Dracula to The Mummy, and The Phantom of the Opera, all brought to life by the masters of horror.
There are some primal locations that come up again and again in horror and monster movies. Many of the scariest stories ever told are stories about going into the woods, encountering something frightening, being chased out, and then standing up to it and chasing it back. The woods have always had the power to kind of stand for the dark recesses of our own imaginations. We don't know what's lurking there. They grab us on some primal level. You know, the woods may be beautiful during the day, but at night, they take on a different character.
For many filmmakers, there is no greater success than to terrorize an audience out of its mind. It brings recognition and box office clout. On October 20th, 1994, two young filmmakers, Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez, came to a small rural Maryland town. Sanchez and Myrick, together with a skeleton production team and a paltry budget of $30,000, shot a horror film of unprecedented success, The Blair Witch Project. The hit indie blockbuster has now grossed $350 million worldwide.
The original concept of Blair Witch to me was that it was a character study of these three film students who were out making a documentary. They were making a documentary on 16 millimeter, but they were also making a behind-the-scenes video of them making the documentary. So you had two layers to the original concept. I've always told people that the less you see, the scarier it is. And that's really what Blair Witch is about. It's a film about what you don't see.
We went down to Maryland. I met the guys. We trained on the equipment, the cameras, and the sound stuff for, I'd say, 3 days. And then they pretty much gave us the setup, what was going on, and they sent us into the woods, and the rest is history.
But nobody knows we're out here.
Yeah, but you ever see Deliverance?
Burkittsville, Maryland was chosen because it has this sort of a very small cemetery, but it runs along a road, and the background is just this majestic Maryland hills. And the small town only has one intersection. There's no gas station there, there's no shopping mall. It's a church, a cemetery, and some houses.
This is Burkittsville, formerly Blair. It is a small, quiet Maryland town. No more than 20 families laid their roots here over 200 years ago.
The only actual scene that we shot in the town of Burkittsville was that cemetery in the beginning of the film, when we go to the cemetery and shoot the headstones. That is the only part of Burkittsville that we ever were in, ever used, ever shot.
By having their actors play novice documentary filmmakers, another layer of believability and realism was added to the film.
The original idea was just to put these actors in the woods and sort of see what they could come up with.
There was no script at all, so I never had gotten my hands on any kind of dialogue whatsoever. Not so much as a plot summary was ever handed to me. Basically, when I got to Maryland, Ed said, "Listen, this is the deal. We're gonna send you out in the woods, and you guys are gonna be all alone. We're gonna be tagging along, but maybe 30, 40 yards around you where you'll not know where we are."
Although the film places the forest adjacent to Burkittsville, they are in fact separated by an hour's drive through the Maryland countryside. Seneca Creek State Park sits on the outskirts of Gaithersburg, a suburb of Washington, D.C. Although relatively small, the park provided the filmmakers with the isolation they needed, multiple terrains, and most importantly, the now infamous woods.
The woods were going to be the main character of the film. If you really think about what the monster is, it's the haunting of the woods, and you'll never find out what that was. I mean, the Blair Witch is sort of this envelope of horror that, in my eyes, was always represented by those few shots that you would see of the woods with the black and white 16 millimeter.
To keep the reactions of the actors as spontaneous and realistic as possible, the directors fed scenarios to them as they went along.
The script came to us in situation form in these film canisters 3 times or 4 times a day. It would just give us what the situation was, how they wanted each of our characters to react.
Your own math was useless! This was your own math was useless!
It was the same situation for all 3 of us, but they wanted us to react differently. They wanted my character to react a certain way, and we weren't able to share these pieces of paper with the other actors.
Out of me! Yesterday I asked you what river we were on! Get this camera off!
I believe the directors captured the feeling of being lost in the woods with nowhere to go. And the horror of it was knowing deep down, as I think you could sense with the characters, they knew deep down after day 2 or 3 that they were never going to get out of there. And the further along we went in the project, the more you started to believe it.
There's a scene in the film where the 3 actors are walking across a tree that's fallen across the river.
Baby steps, man, baby steps.
And they're literally walking across something that's very slick. There's moss on it.
Think of the joy of being in a really good film. Okay, I'm quiet.
And I'm in the woods with a video camera under a bush, so they can't see me. I'm on the ground videotaping them through some bushes.
How are we going to get the data across?
They're carrying the 60mm camera. They're carrying the DAT deck, which is very expensive. They're carrying the video camera and like their supplies, and they're going across this river, and I'm sitting there like, if they slip and fall, the film will be over and no one will ever see any of this film.
Oh, what'd you drop?
When I had to go back to base camp, I was so happy that they didn't fall in. I got lost myself. I couldn't follow the markers back because there's trails. And I literally got lost for like 2 hours, and it got dark, and then I got scared because no one knew where I was, and I didn't think anybody was going to be able to find me.
The suspense, fear, and implied terror of Blair Witch reaches an unrivaled climax in the film's closing scenes.
Hello?
I didn't know what location we were going to. That was the last evening. And the note said in my canister, Josh had already been taken out of the picture. The note in my canister was, tonight you'll hear Josh's voice. Follow it until you come to this location. You'll know what the location is when you see it. I think my most honest line in the whole film was when I first saw that house.
Oh, it's a house.
You know, you're kind of walking in there like, geez, what the hell? I can't wait until this is over. This is the last minute. You're all pent up from the whole week. You know it's the end of the film. You just can't wait to get through it.
They enter the house, and we sort of see the set design, the production design that the art director and production designer spent a lot of time on.
I hear him. I hear him.
They placed everything. They had little kids come in with paint and put their handprints all over the walls.
As if these kids from the past had gone in there and had been slaughtered or something. It was such a frightening thing to have to walk into. And I had seen the stairwell to the downstairs. And the whole time I was walking upstairs, I could care less about going upstairs. I knew that I had to go downstairs, and what was that going to be?
Come on! I hear him downstairs!
That weird shot at the end where Mike's in the corner, just standing there. That makes the audience uncomfortable, and then all of a sudden the camera just falls to the ground, and there's that final image where the film is rolling and there's like a shadow. That's the director's vision. They just wanted it to be like that.
The funny thing about Burkittsville is because of the fame, in the beginning of the success of the film, the town hated us, and it was causing people to go and sort of raid these woods looking for clues of the Blair Witch, not knowing whether or not it was real.
Most of them want to know, have the children been found yet? That was a standard question you get time and time again. The more you tried to correct their assumptions that were wrong, the more you reinforced the story. Because, of course, part of the party line in that story was that the town disavowed any truth to the actual Blair Witch myth.
They were upset probably, and I don't know, but because it was marketed as a true story and that this actually happened, and go see these kids getting lost and probably dying in the woods in the town of Burkittsville. Probably not a great thing for, you know, the slogan of the town, come die in the woods, you know.
Nobody should take away the thought that the town of Burkittsville is unfriendly. There are great things to see within 15 or 20 miles, but the Blair Witch is not one of those things to see.
The Blair Witch Project's brilliance is in its simplicity and believability. By focusing the story on real places and common characters lost in the Maryland countryside, the filmmakers legitimize their story, blurring the line between fiction and reality. Next, from the idyllic streets of South Pasadena, John Carpenter's masterpiece, Halloween.
In a city where action rules, one man knows the true secrets. Jackie Chan.
That's my Hong Kong.
In a Travel Channel exclusive, Jackie Chan gives us a personal tour of his hometown. Explore Hong Kong through the master's eyes. And meet the real Jackie, a role no stunt double could fill. Jackie Chan's Hong Kong. Tonight at 9, only on the Travel Channel. This Tuesday, is this Bigfoot or a big hoax? We're taking you to the site where hundreds claim to have seen this urban legend. Does it really exist? Find out on the premiere of Bigfootville, this Tuesday at 8, only on the Travel Channel.
360.com. Great cars, great rates, 24/7.
We make picture messaging easy, so you can see your world in a whole new way. Nokia, connecting people.
When I was a kid, being a redhead made me feel different. Now it's one of the things that makes me, me.
Revlon High Dimension Hair Color. So precise it only takes 10 minutes to deliver rich, beautiful color. Revlon High Dimension Hair Color. 10 minutes to beautiful.
If you want more out of a cruise, think fast. Royal Olympic Cruises Olympia Voyager and Olympia Explorer are the world's fastest cruise ships, giving you more ports and more time in port. More of the Panama Canal, the Caribbean, the Amazon, the land of the Mayas. More when you cruise around South America. With world-renowned experts and performers, superb cuisine and service, casual elegance, and a friendly Greek crew. Royal Olympic Cruises, the intelligent way to see the world.
Ready for a ghost story? Once upon a time, I designed the cars that defined an entire era of American style. And like all good ghost stories, this one has a sequel. My name's Harley Earl, and I've come back to build you a great car.
Somebody in here?
It's showtime.
Buick, the spirit of American style.
Tomorrow night, the Travel Channel exposes the mysteries of the world's greatest museums. Step back in time at the Smithsonian and unlock the deadly secrets behind the Hope Diamond. Walk through the Red Square museums and uncover the chilling truths about Russia's infamous czars. And at this London exhibit, beware of cursed mummies from ancient Egypt. It's one night when history's darkest stories come alive. An all-new Travel Channel presents tomorrow night starting at 8, only on the Travel Channel. And now, more Travel Channel secrets.
Although the perception exists of Hollywood as the land of the big-budget special effect-laden horror film, history has proven that innovative independent filmmakers find inexpensive and effective ways to frighten their audiences. In the early 70s, USC Film School graduate John Carpenter showed up on the Hollywood independent scene with his writing partner, producer, and girlfriend, Deborah Hill. Together, they produced one of the most influential horror films of all time, Halloween. Halloween was filmed in 1978 over a 21-day period on the streets of West Hollywood and South Pasadena, California.
Halloween was set in Haddonfield, Illinois, and I'm actually from Haddonfield, New Jersey. And the whole concept was that we needed to find a town, a small town that had the same flavor of the town that I grew up in, that had that feeling of if you peel the veneer off the houses, you got to see sort of what was happening inside.
Don't forget to drop the key off at the Myers place.
I won't.
They're coming by to look at the house at 10:30. Be sure to leave it under the mat.
Although it has been a while since Halloween was filmed, the South Pasadena neighborhood and house has remained virtually unchanged. The character of Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, lived in a simple clapboard house at the corner of Oxley Street and Fairview Avenue in South Pasadena. South Pasadena sits only 5 miles to the northeast of downtown Los Angeles. Its tree-lined, quiet streets and simple American architecture make it a desirable place to live and an even better location for enterprising young filmmakers on a budget.
I think it's really important to find a location for a horror picture that gives you a sense of something's about to happen. And it could easily be very gothic, like The Haunting, you know, a haunted house high up on a hill. That's sort of the cliche. But we in Halloween wanted to go the opposite way. We wanted to go safe neighborhood. Nothing could possibly go wrong in this neighborhood. It has to be a beautiful place to live, but yet there are spooky things like the trees and stuff like that. Going against the cliche of what people think is a scary location is probably the hardest challenge. So we needed it to be Midwest, We needed it to look like it was brick houses, which are, you know, from the Midwest and from the East Coast, which are very different from the Los Angeles area. But we couldn't go on location. We had to shoot it in LA.
Jamie Lee Curtis's convincing performance as a sincere and likable babysitter, reinforced by the all-American look of her surroundings, helped launch her career.
Jamie Lee Curtis was really just a wonderful cast member. I mean, she was really the anchor in terms of her character as Laurie Strode. I wanted these three to be real girlfriends, and that's what John Carpenter strove for, and all those sort of walk and talk conversations that they had.
Hey, Linda, Laurie, why didn't you wait for me?
We did. 15 minutes. You totally never showed.
P.J. Soles was just a tremendous actress. I wrote her lines, you know, on the line totally, and she just was constantly saying that. When the movie came out, audiences would be screaming at the screen, and they'd be saying, you know, don't go across the street, don't go there. And every time P.J. Soles said totally, the audience would scream out, totally.
I love the characters. I love that I got to play Linda. I don't think I would have liked to have played Laurie because she was just too boring. In fact, Jamie Lee always used to say to me, "You're so lucky, you get the fun part. I have to play the boring character." So I liked the fact that I had a little bit of a sexy scene. I was sort of the bad girl. I was the one that smoked. And it was fun because we all felt we were getting to contribute something to it. John accepted any line changes. Sometimes he would just say, go with the flow and see how the scene turns out, especially like that scene in the bedroom. He wanted something sexy, but he didn't exactly know what. So we all felt like we were contributing to something and working for an artist who had a vision, and he was allowing us to participate in that. That can be very unusual on a movie set.
Also unusual for an indie feature directed by relative unknowns was to have veteran actor Donald Pleasance in the cast. Although initially unnerved by the production team's lack of experience, the classically trained Pleasance quickly understood Carpenter's sense of humor and vision. Little did Pleasance realize at the time that his character of Dr. Loomis would soon be that of legendary status and resurface in numerous Halloween sequels for nearly 2 decades.
Being on location is really fun. It's much easier to make a movie on location than it is on stage, in my opinion, because you have so many choices when you're out there. It's moody. You know, you're fighting the sun or you're fighting the moon. Making it on a soundstage is so very sterile. So I really enjoy working on location. I really enjoy the challenges that a location gives me.
You're not supposed to go up there.
The Michael Myers house was an abandoned teardown located barely a mile from the Strode home. The beauty of this location was that it played to the common childhood experience of a seemingly haunted house in a very ordinary neighborhood. Shortly after filming, the house was rescued from demolition and restored and relocated down the block and across the street from where it once stood. Today, now a chiropractor's office, people from around the world visit the house and ask to walk its haunting staircase.
John and I were very young filmmakers who really were just, we weren't experimenting, we were really believing that we were making a bigger-than-life film.
Deborah Hill, like John Carpenter, was on the set every single day, and we all felt that the two of them had created this together. And they were boyfriend and girlfriend at the time, so we felt that the two of them came together as a team, and she was there every day, every minute, fixing things on the set, you know, making sure the lunch was there and making sure the makeup was right, getting anything that anybody needed. So she was just as integral a part of the process as John Carpenter. And I thought, since this was the beginning of my film career, I was amazed that a woman could have so much presence and power on a set, too.
South Pasadena provided John Carpenter with multiple locations that reinforced the simple hometown lifestyle they wanted to create. Here at the corner of Mission and Meridian Streets was where Jamie Lee and Nancy Loomis discover that the hardware store had been robbed.
Hi, Dad. What happened?
Oh, somebody broke into the hardware store. Probably kids.
Although most of the Halloween was filmed in South Pasadena, the climax of the story was shot on Orange Grove Street in West Hollywood.
Orange Grove is just absolutely one of the most beautiful streets. It's filled with big, big trees, maples, elms, oaks. Very reminiscent of where I grew up and of the Midwest. It's kind of spooky because of the trees, and the homes are all sort of 2-story, clapboard or brick homes.
That actual street of Orange Grove seemed like a movie set. You know, I mean, it seemed like the back lot of Burbank or Universal to me, because it had a very kind of movie set feel about it. Those houses are great, and the trees, now they've even grown even more, and there's a kind of a spookiness.
Today, the infamous houses where Linda, Laurie, and Annie began their night of Halloween terror are still standing and can easily be found on Hollywood Star Tour maps.
Hello?
After P.J. Soles' untimely demise at the hands of Michael Myers, the script called for some tricky location selection to complete the story. The two houses sit across the street from each other and were chosen to accommodate specific screenwriting issues.
So we were able to set up the relationship between the house that Jamie Lee Curtis was babysitting in and the house that she actually went across the street to. And we were able to set up that juxtaposition so we can tell a really scary, creepy story.
P.J. Soles sometimes returns to this infamous street, this time accompanied by her daughter and friend. It isn't always easy to remember exactly what happened so long ago.
I think this might be it.
No, it's not that one.
No, I think it is. I think they remodeled it so people wouldn't, you know, ask and stop by all the time and say, "Are you the Halloween house?" Then there was the one at Caddy Corner across the street. So I think that looks familiar. It's nice to be out here and nobody's here, because usually when you're filming, there's like all these trucks in the street and there's a million, I mean, you can really tell that, you know, there's a film production going on. So I haven't been here in so long. This is nice. There was a very, very creative atmosphere on the set. Working with John, you got the sense that he had a say and a piece of everything that went on, including the filming, the way the scene was structured, the look of the scene, the feel of the scene, and ultimately even the music. So it was as if Halloween was completely his work of art.
I think that audiences today are so sophisticated. They like the effects. They like to see the sort of behind the scenes. And we were trying to go for something more simplistic, and the storytelling was very, very simplistic. It was fun. It was really fun. I wish I could make movies like that now.
John Carpenter and Deborah Hill successfully delivered a simple story in a terrifying way. And although the film cost only $320,000 to make, it has gone on to gross over $55 million worldwide, sparking an impressive 7 sequels. And it was the locations of Halloween, from the Strode House to Michael Myers' rundown childhood home, the hardware store, to the murder houses in West Hollywood, that were seamlessly combined to create a believable Midwest setting. When we return, the real location that inspired one of the most terrifying movies ever, The Exorcist.
Get ready for a spooky October with Haunted Tuesday.
Only on the Travel Channel.
When I was a kid, being a redhead made me feel different. Now it's one of the things that makes me, me.
Revlon High Dimension Hair Color. So precise it only takes 10 minutes to deliver rich, beautiful color. Revlon High Dimension Hair Color. 10 minutes to beautiful.
Behind him is a 400 square foot deluxe bachelor with a partial view. In front of him is a junior executive semi-private with no view. But right now, life is perfect. On the open road, in complete control of a 6-speed, 200 horsepower Acura RSX Type S.
Own a timeshare? Sell it for cash. Own a campground membership? Sell it for cash. Own some land? Sell it for cash. Call now to receive your free information kit. 1-800-515-4441. Don't pay another maintenance fee. Call now to find out how to sell your timeshare, campground membership, or land and get cash at closing. Call now for your free information kit to find out how to buy, sell, or rent your timeshare, campground membership, or land and get cash at closing. Call 1-800-515-4441. Call now.
Your pet's same exact heartworm and flea medications delivered to your home, saving you time and money.
1-800-PET-MEDS. We deliver savings and convenience on HeartGuard, Advantage, Frontline, and all other pet medications. Call to order now or order online.
Coming this fall is a new series about hip New Yorkers who have only one thing on their minds. Their dogs. On Animal Planet's new reality series, follow a group of New York City dog owners to see what happens at the dog park, on the town, and everywhere in between. It's the first reality series dedicated to dog's best friend. Don't miss Dog Days, Monday at 10, only on Animal Planet.
IBM interest rates, reduce payments, and get out of debt much faster with the Debt Relief Clearinghouse.
I had a couple accounts go to 0%. Some went to 6, some went to 9.
My payments were roughly around $500, and just here recently, my payment has dropped down to $277.
It's a relief off my shoulders.
I'm out of debt. I can breathe easier.
I finally have control over my debt.
Call the number on your screen to dramatically lower your interest rates and get out of debt. Call the Debt Relief Clearinghouse now.
Rendezvous, offering the best of a luxury sedan, minivan, and SUV. Buick kicks off the model year with 0% APR for 60 months on every new 2003. Interest-free financing for 5 years. Plus, on Rendezvous models equipped with rich leather-appointed seating, get up to $655 bonus cash. 0% financing and bonus cash. See your Southern California Buick dealer today.
If you like your world's best in Vegas, baby, live it up like a king in Sin City's top 10 suites. It takes a lot more than luck to be number one. Then, the Travel Channel's letting it ride at the coolest casinos in Las Vegas. This is one countdown that hits the jackpot. World's best top 10 hotel suites in Vegas and top 10 Las Vegas casinos. Wednesday starting at 9 on the Travel Channel. And now, more Travel Channel secrets.
Many contemporary horror films succeed by blurring the line between fact and fiction. And when real-life events inspire writers and filmmakers to create, certain liberties with storylines are not only taken, but more often than not, encouraged. Case in point, the Amityville Horror. About an hour's drive east of Manhattan are the coastal towns of Long Island, New York. Among them is the historic village of Amityville.
Amityville is located on the south shore of Long Island, and in the back of the Amityville house, the notorious Amityville house on Ocean Avenue, is called the Amityville Creek. Basically, that flows into the Great South Bay. Amityville is a quaint little community of 9,000 people. It's a village. It's incorporated, so it's got its own little small police force. You have a lot of old history there, old money, a lot of Dutch colonial, Victorian-type homes. It dates back to the early 17th century. Today, Amityville is best known. It's synonymous with horror. The people of Amityville are very friendly. They're very gracious and nice. The only time the claws come out, so to speak, is basically when you ask about the Amityville Horror.
It was never, ever haunted. That was all hogwash. But somebody had a good imagination, made a lot of money.
The reason why they don't want to acknowledge the Amityville Horror is because they know it was all a hoax. They know the history of the house, and granted a tragedy occurred there, but all the ghost stories and demon stories never took place.
The real Amityville Horror story was the life the DeFeo family lived prior to the murders. Louise DeFeo was the quintessential Italian-American matriarch. What the facade of the family portraits conceals was the pathological physical torture the DeFeo father, Ronnie, inflicted on all of his family. Abusive behavior, some have argued, that led their eldest son, Butch, to murder their entire family.
The true story of the Amityville Horror began on November 13th, 1974. A family of 6 was brutally and grisly murdered in their own home. They were found the next evening by the police, and they were all found in an execution-type pose, face down in their beds. Eventually, the son was convicted of murdering his whole family, and one thing led to another, and that was how the Amityville Horror started.
In 1979, American International Pictures released The Amityville Horror, starring James Brolin and Margot Kidder. The story was based on the alleged paranormal experiences of George and Kathleen Lutz upon moving into the former DeFeo house. The sensationalized movie became a box office smash, even though critics gave it poor reviews.
The topic is still hot, especially on the World Wide Web. Most people really don't know the true story of Amityville. They think it embodies ghosts and demons and a haunted house, and that's just not the real case.
The real-life impact of an entire family slaughter is a nightmare that few in the Amityville community could ever forget.
I was born here, and I went to Amityville High School, and my kids were all born here, and they all went to Amityville High School. And my niece went to school with DeFeo, the boy. They called him Butch. And he was trouble right from the beginning. He had to be nuts to go in and shoot his mother and father and shoot his brothers and sisters while they're sleeping in bed. He had to be wacko. But he was high on drugs.
Due to the well-documented corruption of the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department at the time of the murders and Ronnie DeFeo's self-admitted mob connections, Butch DeFeo's defense team was denied access to a great deal of evidence, including these actual crime scene photographs.
So he had no choice but to plead insanity. Well, the insanity defense led to fabricated demons, ghosts, and goblins. His lawyer, William Weber, basically found this couple, George and Kathy Lutz, to move into the house.
Recent evidence has been uncovered indicating that the Lutzes, together with Butch DeFeo and his lawyer, fabricated the outlandish stories of the house being haunted to help substantiate his insanity defense.
They had nothing. They were from out on the island a little ways, and they came in and they took over the mortgage. And they stayed 1 month and ran to California. And I guess what they did was they made up all these stories and wrote this book.
The deception of the Amityville Horror began as a real-life murder. It was transformed into a sensationalized paranormal horror film of monumental box office success.
The Amityville Horror is kind of a cult phenomenon because you have to understand, in the 1970s, you had such supernatural hits of The Omen, The Exorcist. So at that point, it was almost a plausible scenario for the DeFeo murders. There were so many questions left unanswered that basically people started accepting that, well, that house must be really haunted. You had a bunch of con artists going around saying that the house was haunted, and nobody spoke up. Everyone figured the story would go away. Well, one thing led to another, and it kept growing and growing. There was movie and movie and book, and eventually, you know, Amityville has become synonymous with horror, even though the actual word of Amityville means friendly village.
Eventually, the house changed hands a couple of times. The eyebrow windows, those have been changed, and they kind of tried to change it a little bit so people wouldn't bother them because it was just such a nuisance. You know, whoever was there was having problems.
If people go to Amityville, go there to see the rich history, go to see a beautiful little village, it's almost like time has stopped. If they do drive by the infamous house, don't stop. If you're going to take a picture from the street. Don't knock on the owner's door. He wants to be left alone to enjoy his beautiful property.
Ever since the tragic night the DeFeo family was murdered, the sleepy coastal Long Island town of Amityville has never been the same. And although most locals want to forget the horror, Hollywood's made sure they won't. Next, an exclusive look at the horror movie locations of the Universal Studio backlot.
The secret's out when we take a closer look at a mysterious French legend. Why do some say this woman's corpse proves she was a saint? It's just one of Travel Channel's secrets. World's Strangest Remains, coming up next, only on the Travel Channel.
Introducing the world's first truck with four-wheel steering. The new GMC Sierra Denali with 325 horsepower and quadra-steer. Beats everybody, forwards and backwards.
Life needs the Caribbean. Call your travel agent or visit gocaribbean.com.
Imagine coming home every night to a symphony of jets, all playing their part to make you feel better than ever. Sound good? Then call now and we'll send you a free brochure on the world's #1 hot tub, Hot Spring Spas. They give you what others don't, like a no-fault heater and a no-bypass filtration system, so it's always hot, always clean, always ready when you are. With a Hot Spring Spa, you get unparalleled technology, the support of a professional dealer, and a place where everyday stress just disappears. Drift away to a symphony played by the world's most unique variety of jets. Feel our patented Moto Massage jets sweep up and down your back while others work your neck, shoulders, and feet. So call now or visit our website to get your free brochure at the dealer near you. Hot Spring Spas, built for a lifetime of relaxation.
If you've been thinking about getting a satellite dish and think it should be easy with only 2 companies to choose from, it's just not that simple. That's why you need this free fact-filled brochure from the Satellite Entertainment Information Center. It's a great place to start. Call toll-free 1-888-DISH-HELP. With so many manufacturers of satellite equipment and dozens of different programming packages, it's easy to get confused. Get all the information you need before you buy. Just call 1-888-DISH-HELP.
Hi, I'm Jill with Adelphia Media Services. Please help me support the Boys and Girls Club of Southwest County by attending a special event, Our Kids Rock silent auction on Saturday, November 2nd at the Pechanga Entertainment Center.
In a city where action rules, one man knows the true secrets. Jackie Chan.
That's my Hong Kong.
In a Travel Channel exclusive, Jackie Chan gives us a personal tour of his hometown. Explore Hong Kong through the master's eyes. And meet the real Jackie, a role no stunt double could fill. Jackie Chan's Hong Kong. Tonight at 9, only on the Travel Channel. And now, more Travel Channel secrets.
Universal Studios Hollywood is the largest movie-making studio in the world. Universal is a global media and entertainment empire, and its Hollywood studios attract 5 million visitors annually. German-born Carl Laemmle founded Universal Studios in 1915.
Universal really created the horror movie as we know it today, and it's amazing to think how different Hollywood history would have been had they not taken the chance on Dracula in 1931. The surprise success of that film literally saved the studio from bankruptcy.
I am Dracula.
Universal were the first studio to really create a franchise, ongoing characters, and they mined them for all they're worth, and they're still mining them today. They're indelible cultural icons. None of the other studios did quite the same thing.
The historic backlot of Universal Studios sits atop 230 acres of prime Hollywood real estate. And today, you're going to get an exclusive look at the horror movie locations that built an entertainment empire.
Hi, welcome to Universal Studios Hollywood. Today we're on location. We're going to take you behind the scenes to some of the secret locations where some of the most famous horror movies of all time were filmed. So we're going to start off with Stage 28, the haunted soundstage from Phantom of the Opera. Come on.
The Universal backlot is a national treasure. The impressive filmmaking facility has attracted tens of millions of visitors over its long history, but few are given access to Stage 28, the crown jewel of this historic studio.
This is the original Paris Opera House from 1925's The Phantom of the Opera, the silent film starring the great Lon Chaney, the man of 1,000 faces. This is probably the oldest freestanding set in all of Hollywood. I feel like I'm walking right into Hollywood history. This is where it all started. The whole reason they built this is they needed to recreate the Paris Opera House, and this is Hollywood. They didn't want to send the entire production off to Paris. It would be too expensive to film, so Mr. Laemmle had them build Paris right here on the Universal lot. This has been preserved. And it was preserved because Universal could reuse the set over and over and over again. It's appeared in a million different movies. You've seen it in The Sting. You've seen it in Alfred Hitchcock thrillers. They always needed a big opera house set, so that's probably the only reason this set still survived. It was also used for Jurassic Park. This was also in the movie Psycho. This is the interior of Norman Bates' house. In the movie Bride of Frankenstein. So it's forever been linked to monster movies and horror films.
The success of Phantom of the Opera initiated the horror movie cycle for Universal, and subsequent blockbuster films like Dracula, Frankenstein, and The Mummy defined Universal's dominance of the horror movie genre.
Right now we're in Little Europe, and I'm walking under the archway where Boris Karloff chased a frightened crowd of villagers in the movie Frankenstein, which put Universal horror movies on the map in the 1930s.
In virtually every one of Universal's original horror films, an angry mob of villagers looking desperately for the monster are chasing through the town with bloodhounds and pitchforks.
And in all of those movies, this is the town that they were chasing through. We just shot it from different angles so it looked like different towns. These windows you're looking at are famous from the movie Frankenstein. It's where all of the villagers are staring down as a grief-stricken father carries his dead daughter Maria through the town after Frankenstein accidentally drowns her. But just around the corner is the Court of Miracles, which is perhaps the most famous location for monster movies on the Universal backlot. Right now we're in the world-famous Court of Miracles, named after an obscure Lon Chaney movie called The Miracle Man, but most famous for the Festival of Fools scene from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, 1923, starring the great Lon Chaney, the Man of a Thousand Faces.
Although these sets date back to the silent film era, they're still used today for modern-day horror tales like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel.
But right now we're going to take you to the most famous horror set in all of Hollywood, the Psycho House from Alfred Hitchcock's world-famous thriller, Psycho. Come on. If you're looking for a good place to stay this summer, we recommend the Bates Motel. We're standing right here in one of the most famous movie sets in all of Hollywood. This is the Bates Motel from Alfred Hitchcock's classic thriller, Psycho. And just around the corner, the world-famous Psycho House. The Psycho House is what we call a shell here in Hollywood. There's nothing inside the house. You open the door, it's just empty space. All of the interiors were filmed inside the same soundstage we visited earlier today. Towards the end of Psycho, there's a scene where Vera Miles arrives at the Bates Motel in Psycho House. Her sister's missing, the investigator she hired is missing, so she decides to check things out for herself, and that's what we're going to do right now. And now we've arrived at the world-famous Psycho House from Alfred Hitchcock's classic thriller, 1960's Psycho. This house has been around the Universal backlot since 1960, over 40 years.
The Psycho House was first built where today's set for the best little whorehouse in Texas is now located. The Macabre House was moved to its present location for Psycho 2. Alfred Hitchcock was the master of modern terror, and Psycho was his greatest success. And of all the brilliant scenes he directed, the shower scene in Psycho stands out from the rest. Using 70 different camera angles, Norman Bates' knife is never seen touching Marion Crane's flesh.
Hitchcock had a lot of problems with the censors when he was making that movie, and they demanded changes, but in typical Hitchcock fashion, he just sat on the footage, didn't change a single frame of film. He sent it back to them the exact same way they saw it the first time, and they approved it, and even thanked him in a letter for the changes that he made. Well, we've reached the end of the line here on our exclusive tour of the Universal backlot, and we're going to end our tour in the same exact place we started it, here on the Universal Movie Poster Timeline. I'll give you one last piece of trivia. This road we're standing on right now is the same road Renfield took to get to Dracula's castle in 1931 for Universal's classic horror movie, Dracula. I hope you had a great time, and we'll see you in the movies, folks. Goodbye.
Hi, Tracy Gallagher for the Travel Channel. I'm here at spookyhouse.com, where scaring you silly is serious business. From the zombie shuffle to blood-curdling scream. These guys are frighteningly good. And if you're looking for more spine-tingling thrills, from mansions of mystery to haunted hotels, watch Haunted Travels Week starting October 28th at 8, only on the Travel Channel.
Today, on Strangest Remains, a French museum filled with skinned bodies.
Chang and Eng, the first Siamese twins. The grave robbers who became medical specimens. The story of the surgeon and the giant and the fight for his skeleton. We'll see the mysterious Hand of Glory. And look at the tragic life of the Elephant Man. All this and more on Strangest Remains. Rest in peace is a common enough epitaph, but for many people buried in 19th century Edinburgh, it was a wish that was not granted. On dark nights, shadowy figures worked among the graves, digging up freshly buried corpses. They were the body snatchers, although their ability to raise the dead gave rise to the nickname resurrectionists. Strangely, the practice was actually encouraged by respectable surgeons such as the eminent Dr. Robert Knox. As one of the foremost anatomists of his day, the doctor's classes in Edinburgh were always packed. Up to 500 eager surgeons would watch him perform dissections in this very lecture theater. His problem was finding enough bodies for these demonstrations. This price list shows what students of the day paid for the privilege of cutting up a fresh corpse. Officially, each medical school was only allowed a corpse of one executed criminal each year. But unofficially, body snatchers carried on their sinister trade to make sure that supply met demand. Of course, people were outraged and took steps to protect their deceased loved ones. Some buried them in mort safes, graves surrounded by iron bars fixed deep into the ground. Others used self-sealing iron coffins that could not be broken into. But the most infamous body snatchers, Burke and Hare, were not so much grave robbers as serial killers. Both Irish, they came to Scotland to find work and met in 1826. They lived in squalid lodgings here in Edinburgh's run-down Westport area. Their first victim died here in this lodging house from natural causes, owing Burke £10. Desperate to retrieve the debt, Burke and Hare took the corpse by cart to Surgeon Square and to the doctor's home. Knox knew better than to ask questions and paid the pair £20, indicating he was interested in more acquisitions. So rather than wait for sick lodgers to die, Burke and Hare suffocated healthy men and delivered their bodies to the doctor's back door. New victims were lured to parties hosted by Burke and Hare. They were plied with whiskey and then murdered. Victims were in no condition to put up a struggle. Before delivery, the bodies were locked up. But one day, two new lodgers hurried to the local police station. They had found a fresh corpse carelessly hidden in their own room. Burke and Hare were arrested and held here. Hare agreed to testify against Burke in return for immunity. The trial lasted one day, and Burke was convicted of murder. This is a drawing of him and his wife just as sentence was passed. Burke was hanged before 25,000 people on January 28, 1829. He confessed to 16 slayings. Ironically, William Burke's fate was the same as that of his victims. His body was publicly dissected with these instruments by Dr. Alexander Monroe, Dr. Knox's main rival. This is Burke's death mask, cast just after he was cut down from the gallows. You can see the rope marks on his neck. And this is his skeleton, which now stands in mute testimony to the ghastly crimes he committed. Some of his skin ended up in private collections. Charles Dickens owned a piece, used it as a bookmark. Here you can see incisions made by Dr. Monroe while dissecting Burke's skull and removing his brain. This is a model of it, cast from Burke's cranium. Apart from his bones and death mask, Burke left another legacy in a word he gave to the English language. Even today, burking is a term for suffocating a victim without leaving a mark on their body. But what of Dr. Robert Knox? Although exonerated, he was forced to flee to London. the rhyme about his involvement still ringing in his ears. Down the passageway and up the stair, out and in with Burke and Hare. Burke's the butcher, Hare's the thief, Knox is the boy who buys the beef. Incredibly, the man that encouraged Burke and Hare to murder 16 innocent people in Edinburgh got away scot-free. This is Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, home of the Mutter Museum at the College of Physicians of Philadelphia. Most institutions have a few skeletons in their closet, but here at the Mutter Museum, thanks to Thomas Mutter, their benefactor, they have hundreds of them. In 1856, Dr. Thomas Dent Mutter wrote to the college that ill health was forcing him to retire his post, and he wished to offer $30,000 and his unique collection. When it arrived, the college discovered Mutter's unique collection consisted of over 2,000 examples of medical technology and curiosity. After years of documenting, the college opened its doors to the public. For over a century, this gallery has been home to some of medical science's strangest and most gruesome artifacts. This is a plaster cast of conjoined twins born in 1870. They survived for 13 months. They quickly became a medical curiosity, visited by hundreds of people every day. Doctors would continually send interesting specimens to Mutter's collection whenever they came across them, like this skull, which was from a field hospital serving the Battle of the Wilderness during the Civil War. Sadly for this soldier, the doctor had no trouble determining his cause of death. The bullet passed completely through his skull. This wall of skulls from 19th century Bosnia, containing 139 skulls, demonstrates some extraordinary variations in skull structures. This wax sculpture is of Madame Dimanche, the unicorn lady, who lived in early 19th century Paris. She lived 80 years before doctors learned how to remove the 6-inch horn sprouting from her forehead. This man complained that he only had a bowel movement every 4 weeks. Doctors diagnosed him as having a simple enlargement of the colon and sent him home. The man died a short time later. After an autopsy, doctors discovered why. This is the man's colon. It is 8 feet long and weighed over 40 pounds. At its widest point, the colon has a circumference of nearly 2 feet. Now filled with wire and straw to keep its shape, the colon is preserved in this case as a warning to all trainee doctors of the perils of misdiagnosis. This fearsome exhibit is perhaps the most chilling item on display at the museum. This gruesome mass of tissue was donated in 1874 by Joseph Leidy. He called her the Soap Lady. Her corpse has not an ounce of fat on it. That's not due to regular workouts. It's because every ounce of her fat has turned to soap. During the relocation of a local graveyard, hundreds of rotting bodies were exhumed. When the laborers conducting this grisly task came across an even more fearful corpse than the others, it didn't take long for Leidy to hear about it. He concluded that a rare chemical reaction in the soil had turned the woman's decomposing flesh into this brown, fatty substance, similar in composition to soap. The process preserved much of the detail in her flesh. The skin on her feet still hangs between the joints of her skeletal toes. On her hands you can still see wrinkles at the joints, and here on her head, flaking flesh mingles with her white hair. Once safely delivered to her new home, scientists began conducting tests on her, including this remarkable series of X-rays. In this X-ray, doctors spotted this metal pin. Analysis of the pin determined the soap lady must have died in the early 1800s, meaning the metamorphosis had taken just 65 years. Nobody knows the true identity of the soap lady or how she died, but buried alongside her was a soap man. Long since separated, we can only hope the soap couple slipped into the next world together. This eye-catching wall of molds of eyes shows just some of the terrible and painful fates to have befallen a number of patients. From the everyday to the horrific. From the unfortunate to the truly gruesome. Gretchen Worden is the director of the Mutter Museum, responsible for keeping the collection up to date. But she's taken a special interest in 2 of the college's older residents. Chang and Eng, the Siamese twins, studied here at the college after their deaths. This plaster cast was made after the autopsy. Their bodies were returned to their families in North Carolina for burial. The boys were born in Siam in 1811, joined here at the chest by a band of skin and cartilage. At the age of 17, Chang and Eng were earning money performing gymnastics for anyone who'd pay to watch them. Their curious appearance soon took the brothers to audiences around the world. An entrepreneurial manager invited them to America, where he presented them on a grand tour. They became known as the Siamese Twins. With their new billing, the brothers built a career being exhibited in all the best venues around the world. This is a special double-seated chair Chang and Eng traveled with. The twins performed daily shows in which they demonstrated feats of strength and displayed their connecting band to sell-out audiences.
After a while, they accumulated enough money so they were able to retire, and they liked the area of Mount Airy, North Carolina. So there they settled down, they bought land, they married sisters, and eventually had 21 children. They lived on separate farms so that each man could be master of his own house. After the Civil War, they were of course loyal Confederates. They lost a great deal of money in the war, and they had to go back on the tour route in order to recoup and try to support their families. And it was during that time that Chang, who is on the right-hand side, suffered a stroke. And for the last 5 years of his life, he was more or less incapacitated and had to be slightly helped around by his brother Eng. And so in 1874, in January, they were doing the routine move from one house to the other. During the night, Eng woke up sometime later and discovered his brother Chang was dead. And several hours later, Eng followed. And today we think that he simply bled to death, since his brother's heart was not returning the blood to his body, even though it was a superficial circulatory connection.
As surgeons at the Mutter Museum performed the autopsy, the Siamese twins finally experienced the one thing that eluded them during life: separation. This photograph was taken immediately after the operation, in which doctors discovered only a simple procedure had been needed to separate the boys. Stained yellow by formaldehyde, these are Chang and Eng's livers, clearly visible as the thin band of tissue that connected them. Chang and Eng's display here has inspired a further exhibit looking at the history of other Siamese twins. These are the North Carolina twins Millie and Christine McCoy. Born into slavery, they were just 2 years old when they were taken from their family and forced into circus life. These are the Tocci brothers, Giovanni and Giacomo, born in Italy in 1877. But it is the original Siamese twins who attract most attention here at the Mutter Museum. Despite trends to remove the more unsavory articles, Chang and Eng remain on view for doctors to study, and so the public may understand how medicine continues to advance for the benefit of everyone. In a city which boasts attractions such as the Liberty Bell, for the Mutter Museum to have so many visitors proves there's a part of everybody interested in body parts.
Tomorrow night, the Travel Channel exposes the mysteries of the world's greatest museums. Step back in time at the Smithsonian and unlock the deadly secrets behind the Hope Diamond. Walk through the Red Square museums and uncover the chilling truths about Russia's infamous czars. And at this London exhibit, beware of cursed mummies from ancient Egypt. It's one night when history's darkest stories come alive. An all-new Travel Channel presents tomorrow night starting at 8, only on the Travel Channel. If you like your world's best in Vegas, baby, live it up like a king in Sin City's top 10 suites. It takes a